Hello everyone and welcome to a brand new Let's Play of Hearts of Iron 4, the Great War Redux as Germany. Yes, we are going to revisit the trenches of the First World War in what I think is currently the only missing playthrough. Well, that might not be true. We played Germany in Black Ice through the Second World War, and we played it in the Cold War as a victor of the Second World War in the last days of Europe. We haven't played it in the modern day mod, or the Millennium Dawn, or whatever it is called now, and we haven't played it in the World War I era, which we are going to change today, in what I think is probably going to be the hardest playthrough that I've ever done. The reasons are as follows. Yes, we are going to play as Germany, which is probably the strongest nation at the very start of the game, but we are going to play on very hard difficulty, which I've never done before, and it's going to be a huge challenge. I'm going to explain why in just a second. But we're also going to have to deal with a bunch of things that the Great War Redux is doing differently than the Great War mod that you have seen me play through as Austria-Hungary. And where there was a way how to effectively change your army composition so that you can, well, break through. that's the code of the game. And again, I'm going to explain what I'm talking about in this episode once we are in the game. But yeah, this is going to be super hard and I'm looking forward to it. I've been looking towards it for quite some time now. I'm not going to lie, I actually ran a couple of test games because I wanted to see if it's even possible, because the very hard difficulty is giving you so many malices that I wasn't sure. And yes, it is possible. I didn't play through the game, meaning I didn't play through the World War I era, but I wanted to see what kind of events we're gonna get, what kind of focuses we should take, because this is a step back from the rushed modern era. This is where you need to prepare meticulously and make sure that everything is fine. So we're gonna start at 1st of May 1910 with the Powder Keg of Europe scenario. 1910 is a challenging time for the peace in Europe. The Italians are preparing for a war with the Ottomans, which will threaten their hold in the Balkans. Rebellions in Morocco is beginning to boil over, much to the anguish of France and to the delight of the German Empire. All in all, either clear heads will be needed to keep the peace, or strong hearts to win the war. So that's a really nice scenario that we have laid ahead of us. Now we have Wilhelm II Imperial Connections. We can see that he is giving us quite a lot of bonuses. High Command cost lowered by 25%, Army Chief cost lowered by 25%, Navy Chief cost lowered by 25%, same as our Air Chief cost. Political Advisor cost, Economy Laws cost, Trade Laws cost, and Conscription Laws cost also all reduced by 25%. His Imperial and Royal Majesty Wilhelm II, by the grace of God, German Emperor and King of Prussia, Margrave of Brandenburg, Burgrave of Nuremberg, Count of Hohenzollern, Duke of Silesia and the County of Glatz, Grand Duke of the Lower Rhine and of Posen, Duke of Saxony, of Angria, of Westphalia, of Pomerania and of Lunenburg, Duke of Schleswig, of Holstein and of Crossen, Duke of Magdeburg, of Bremen, of Guelderland and of Jülich, Cleves and Berg, Duke of the Wends and of Kashubians, of Wallenberg and of Mecklenburg, Landgrave of Hesse and in Thuringia, Margrave of Upper and Lower Lusatia, Prince of Orange, of Rügen, of East Friesland, of Paderborn and of Piemont, Prince of Halberstadt, of Münster, of Minden, of Osnabrück, of Hildesheim, of Verden, of Camin, of Fulda, of Nassau and of Moers, Princely Count of Hennenberg, Count of Mark, of Ravensburg, of Hohenstein, of Tacklenburg and of Lingen, Count of Mansfeld, of Sigmaringen and of Weringen, Lord of Frankfurt. So those are all of the titles that Wilhelm II holds at the start of the game. Hopefully we're gonna add a couple more as we're gonna chug through the war, but maybe we're gonna even lose a couple. We'll see. Anyway, Wilhelm II is leading Germany, which is an authoritarian nation at the start of the game. We have an authoritarian regime as the form of government. Elections, yes, we're gonna have elections in January 1912, but I don't think they're gonna be able to change much. And the ruling party is House of Hohenzollern. We have a couple of bonuses here. Norddeutscher Bund legacy. Ideology drift defense plus 25%. German is indestructible and indivisible. The legacy of past years for many centuries to come determined the greatness of the German Empire. And we have the General Staff giving us planning speed, max planning, both plus 5%, and land doctrine cost lowered by 10%. The Oberste Heeresleitung, OHL, is the highest echelon of command of the army of the German Empire. The influence of staff is so great that it can become a dangerous political force in the country. Now we have Turn to Asia, War with France, and Restoration of the Holy Empire. I never know what to call these. They're like marks or tributes or signs. Weird. Turn to Asia. While Africa is almost fully colonized by greedy Western imperialists unwilling to give up an inch of territory, Asia is vast and has many opportunities for imperialism. War with France. The French hold a colonial hegemony in Africa and are standing in the way of Germany's greatness. They must be dealt with. And restoration of the Holy Roman Empire. Some jurists argue that while abdication of Emperor Franz II in 1806 was legal, the release of all vassals was beyond the emperor's authority. Thus, the Holy Roman Empire has never been dissoluted de jure. We have now won the Weltkrieg and recover. We have now won the Weltkrieg and recover all German lands of the old. Oh, and this probably should be recovered all German lands of the old empire. Perhaps we should restore this ancient imperial title and justify our rule to the greater German lands, or even further. Okay, now we're gonna get to the map where I actually want to speak a bit about the mod. I usually do that in the beginning, but I feel like it's gonna be a bit better at this point. Now, as you can see, I've already selected the Elite difficulty, which is something insane, but I really want to try it. I have nothing to offer but blood, toil, tears, and sweat. So Elite difficulty lowers our political power by 15%, increases our supply consumption by 10%. That's fine, but the thing that's really going to throw us into a slaughterhouse is the production efficiency cap lowered by 30% and the research speed lowered by 30%. While this might not seem like a massive malice, what you need to understand is that our production efficiency is not 100 and we're losing 30%. No, it's actually something like 40 and we're losing 30% of that. So we're going to have like 10 or maybe 15% while everyone else is going to have that much more. It's really harsh and it will really grab us insanely. Veteran lowers it by 20% and these ones give you a bonus. This is the highest or biggest issue and highest priority that we're gonna have to deal with to increase our production efficiency cap, because that is a modifier that actually shows how much of everything you produce. And while I was running my testing scenarios, I was constantly out of supplies, out of guns, out of artillery. It's really a logistics nightmare, and we're gonna struggle with this for the entirety of the playthrough. And I think if something is going to break us, it's going to be our low production efficiency. Because Jesus Christ, it is a nightmare, and you're gonna see it very soon. And the research speed, okay, 30% is awful, but the production efficiency is what's gonna break us. For AI, they get bonuses, supply grace 72 hours, army fuel consumption, navy fuel consumption, and air fuel consumption is lowered for them by 50%, but that is not an issue at all. This mod is very graceful and very forgiving when it comes to fuel, so that is not going to hurt anyone. So what situation are going to what situation are we going to find ourselves into is what I was trying to say with that rushed, not thought through sentence. Well, Germany is going to end up in a war with France, United Kingdom, and Russia. We are going to have to bolster the French border is going to be easy. We'll have forts on it. But we're most likely not going to be able to follow in the footsteps of the German Empire in the beginning, and that is an invasion from Belgium into France, where we would actually take most of this area. I believe that Germany was able to get to around this area. In certain situations, they moved past the salient around Verdun, battle at Somme and so on. So we're probably not going to be able to do that in the beginning because we have a huge border with Russia. Russia is not going to have anyone else, just us and Austria to fight. And quite similarly to the historical situation, Austria pretty quickly starts to crumble. It's going to be most likely pushed towards the mountains, and it will rely heavily on us to stop the Russians. So what the plan is going to be for us is we're gonna bolster the French border, make sure that they cannot break through, and then we are going to focus on Russia until we feel comfortable and can create at least 1 or 2 armies that are going to break through Belgium and start threatening France. Per se, I'm not going to go with the strategy of just defeating Russia first and then focusing on France. I'm going to try to push on both sides and have a clear split between the Western and Eastern armies, so as to at least a bit reflect the historicity of the game. On the other hand, and I know that I'm sounding maybe a bit annoying, but we are going to be really pressed for equipment, so we'll have to see how much we can raise. Apart from that, we're also going to have a number of colonies to defend. There's a number of smaller lands in German Africa, and there's also a colony that we have over here in China that we will need to defend. So we'll have to make sure that those won't fall. They're most likely going to fall either way, but we're going to try to bolster them and make sure that our colonial forces are up to par. As far as the historicity of the game, Germany is fairly, I don't want to call it a superpower at this point, but Germany was definitely one of the major powers in the world. It was rivaled for most of its 19th century history by United Kingdom. It is still, I believe, well known that Germany was much stronger when it came to the industrial base at this point because it was larger, but the United Kingdom had much bigger colonies. It had much stronger navy. You all know the Royal Navy, and thus they managed to contain Germany for most of the First World War. They managed to avoid the blockade that Germany was trying to impose on the United Kingdom, and they were able to transfer most of their troops into France, which actually managed to hold the French army together until the Americans started arriving, which is where Germany surrendered, because at a certain point I think there was like 100,000 Americans arriving every week to France, and while France and United Kingdoms had a big manpower pool still untapped, Germany just didn't have any more men to send to the front, and they were also collapsing economically because while their original idea was an unrestricted submarine warfare against United Kingdom, it turned on them, and throughout the second part of World War I, they started having huge industrial and agricultural problems. They couldn't feed their population, which led to a number of critical situations. Same thing happened to Austria-Hungary, so even though they managed to defeat Russia, when the armistice with the Allies, meaning United Kingdom, France, and United States, was signed, Germany was still under a blockade, I think, for the next 12 or 13 months. I can't remember, and it led to a number of extra deaths. Just agriculture, it was a disaster. and the food situation in Germany was just horrifying. So we're gonna hope not to repeat that. We're gonna have to address many of the issues that I mentioned here, like the navy, the equipment, the industry, but we'll see. Separate chapter is going to be our involvement in the Ottoman Empire. You guys saw the playthrough of Austria-Hungary in the original Great War mode. The Ottomans are most likely going to collapse the same way. I'm just gonna bolster Austria-Hungary and we'll see if we can help the Ottomans, but I'm not entirely sure there's gonna be something that we can do for them. We'll have a border through Austria-Hungary, so I might send a contingent there to defend Constantinople, and kind of similarly to our previous involvement, we might restore them later on, but we'll see. We'll see. Anyway, let's start the game. I'm kind of excited for this to show you the strategy that I came up with, but again, you must remember that it's gonna be a horrifying nightmare, most of it. I'm gonna try to be as meticulous as we can in the beginning and make sure that we don't forget anything, but yeah, we'll see. We'll see. I'm kind of feeling a bit jittery right now. Maybe it's the coffee that I drank a couple of minutes ago before I started playing. So, what kind of situation are we finding ourselves in? As I mentioned, our biggest ally is going to be Austria-Hungary. It is worth to say that the Redux gives you a lot of focuses, but you will lock yourselves out of most of them, depending on whether or not you want to go the historical route or ahistorical route. We're gonna, for most part, go through the historical route, because I think the Germans did, they played their cards well, so I don't want to change anything too dramatically. It's gonna be kind of hard to time everything correctly. Why I'm saying that is that most of these focuses take 70 days, and that means once you're committed to something, if something else happens, you are no longer able to influence it. We're gonna go with the Weltpolitik, which is a historical route, which is gonna lead us to fan the Prussian militarism, giving us some nice army experience and war-based support, and we get division organization increased by 15% and extra recruitable population of 0.5%, which is amazing. It will also allow us to start deploying the Landsturm divisions. I'm gonna be honest, I never really found that much use for them. I'm gonna show them once we get the option, but our biggest issue is not training of the new troops, but equipping them. And deploying Landsturm divisions means that you lose a ton of equipment that you need to give to them. So yeah, I'm not a fan of that, but the option is going to be there. Maybe you guys will think of some use for them. They might be good, for example, for the colonies. After which we have the OHL Authority, which is going to be kind of important for us because it gives a lot of army, air and navy experience, which we would definitely use. It's also modifying our general staff by giving us extra planning speed, extra max planning, and maximum command power increased by +10. Unfortunately, the lowest daily political power gain, but no, it's not a major malus, but I was really pressed for political power through my tests, so it's not something that you can ignore. And then you have a number of focuses here that go with your actual army stuff, or that goes into that stuff, like focus on light aviation, focus on the airships. You have some expanding of the staff here, which gives you bonuses to land doctrines. This one is actually very useful. The reduction of 2 land doctrines by 30% is extremely beneficial for us. So we're gonna have to make sure we get this one before the war starts. Then you get the Oberster Kriegsherr here, which gives you some new people as chiefs of army. The Hindenburg program is something that we need to be prepared to take once the war starts. You need at least 1.2 million of manpower in the field, and you need to be at war. But in return, you get 2 military and 3 civilian factories, which is really good, and you get a 100% research bonus for industry and armor technology, which is just amazing. So this one is going to be one of our priorities, definitely. There's also the military mission to Turkey, which we should get. I'm not gonna lie, I'm actually a bit confused about the repercussions of these and the Scandinavian focus, because during my test it seemed like without it the Ottomans are not gonna join into the war, and thus it may be something that we could actually hope to not take before the Ottomans are ready. They joined the war a bit later when they felt they were ready. I think they joined in 1915, if I remember correctly. Early in 1915, and they were still not ready. so their military defeats in the campaign in the mountains here, I don't know where it actually happened, but it was somewhere around this. Was it around Erevan? It was a massacre. The original campaign that they started with was just a disaster of unbelievable proportions. But that goes to all of the nations, actually. I have this book that's called First World War Day by Day, where you have weekly updates. So I plan to actually keep it with me, and every time I start recording, if there is something interesting that happened at that time period, I'm gonna bring it up and mention it. But as before, I would like to strongly recommend you guys check out the Great War channel. I already recommended it a couple of times. It's gonna be linked in the description of this first video because it's amazing, and if you want to know more about the Great War, and actually you can follow it while I'm playing this as well, because I watched it like twice through, and it's just amazing the way how they managed to put all information together and all of the details that they were able to find. It's just amazing. So yeah. Anyway, as far as the focuses go, the big ones for us are also going to be here. The place under the sun is really important. We need to get that one, not because it gives us a 25 Navy experience, that's also good, but because it allows you to get the Agadir crisis. The Agadir crisis was actually a conflict between France and Germany, and we need to have this one ready when the time comes. Not only because it's going to allow us to get the world tensions a bit up, but it will allow us to puppet Morocco if we want to, which might be something that I'd be interested in for gameplay reasons. Usually I would say this might be a bit trying to game the game, but we will have a chance to escalate the conflict and actually snatch up ahistorically Morocco as a puppet, which will greatly increase the world tensions and allow us to switch from early mobilization to partial mobilization about a year earlier than we would be normally available, giving us a bit of a bonus to our production. So I'm considering that's something I might want to do. Again, normally I wouldn't do that. I'd go with historical way, but this would allow us to do this early, and every factory is going to count for us down the line. It also leads later on, once you go through the Agadir crisis, to naval supremacy, which again is not that great. It gives you a chief of navy who is fine, some bonuses to naval doctrines, that's all fine, but the reason why I want it is because of these focuses. Atlantic Shipyard gives you 4 naval dockyards, Pacific Shipyard gives you 3 naval dockyards, and I think there's one more down there somewhere. Or is it just these 2? No, wait, they are here, pardon me. After Agadir crisis, you also gain the Claim Middle Africa, which gives you the ability to invest in Cameroon, giving you a military and a civilian factory. Investing in Zuidwest Africa gives you 2 civilian factories, extra compliance in your colonies, and East Africa gives you 2 civilian factories, extra compliance, and that leads to colonial docks, which gives you 3 extra naval dockyards. That's also something that we really need to get, because Navy is going to be super important for us, and we're starting with a decent naval dockyard structure or capacity, but these, what is it, 2 and 3, that's 7, and 3 more, so extra 10 naval dockyards just from these 3 focuses, which is just great. There's also the interactions with Austria-Hungary, We're gonna go historical way here, support their claims. They get some, bonuses from that, I think. Yeah, they get claim to Lombardy and Veneto. We can then claim Eastern expansion, not Western expansion. Western expansion is good too, though. Political power plus 150 is going to be amazing. And there's a joint German-Austrian staff which unlocks the decision control Austrian planning. I don't like that. I think that one, I never used it. We can check it, but I think that gives you control of the Austrian army, and I don't like it. But historically, it is true that Germans were very unhappy with the performance of the Austrians. They have to bail them out when it came to the fight with the Russians. They took the brunt of the fighting, and at a certain point they just took, whether or not you can call it open, doesn't matter, they took the control of the Austrian army and its planning and its operations. So they really, using soft politics, like they didn't make a coup in Austria-Hungary, but they were heavily involved in ordering the Austrians around. Then you get some bonuses here regarding the Balkans, but I don't really consider those that important. One thing that I never really tried, and you can let me know if you'd like me to try it. Historically, there's this befriend Sweden focus, which gives you a bonus to relations, but we could also try to pressure them. And then there's invasion of Finland, which I believe puts pressure, establish Finnish monarchy pressure. I think this one actually, I found that it takes them into the war, but now I'm not sure because there's some kind of focus. Scandinavia will have to submit. Okay, well, we might go through this one because it would give us an entirely new front, and opening a fight in the north could be good if we could get Sweden involved into the war and let them invade Russia from the north. Not unlike the campaign that we actually fought as Sweden. So that might be good. So that's to the national focuses. Now, as far as our... I'm gonna start with the army. Usually I would move to the industry, but we're gonna move to the army. Now you can see here that we have 52 infantry divisions and 1 cavalry division. Now, all of our infantry divisions, with the exception of, I think, 2... no, actually all of them. Cool. So all of them are part of this infantry division template. Now, the infantry division template is all but nice. I don't have any problem with it. It's a template. It has a combat width of 33. It's fine. Soft attack is 48. Again, I don't have a problem with that. Hard attack is 11.2, defense is 245.6, and breakthrough is 39. Now, this already tells you that if you send these guys into an offensive, they are going to be struggling heavily, because if this unit, and that's a base unit, that's the same for every country, if every infantry battalion that we have here has defense of 6 but soft attack of 2, you can imagine what kind of casualties the attacker is going to have, especially when entrenchment comes into play, especially when modifiers as weather comes into play. So this, again, as it was in the Great War mod, heavily shows you what kind of massacre the fights in the First World War were. But unfortunately, what they did for this version of the mod, for the Redux, is that they removed the bonuses that the howitzer or the heavy artillery had. So when you look at the howitzer, it's giving us 3 defense, 30 soft attack, but only 2 breakthrough. So while it increases the casualties on the side of the defenders, it doesn't in any way reduce the damage that you are taking. That's a huge difference from the Great War mod, where we ended up relying heavily on our howitzer and later howitzer tank units, where we basically shielded our infantry units by giving them heavy artillery, and that reduced the casualties on our side. Here, that won't fly. Here, every attack will be a massacre. Because while we can greatly increase the soft attack of our units, we in no way can increase the breakthrough. Well, I mean, we can increase it slightly, and there are going to be some kind of modifiers as we're going to go through the... what's it called? Oh, I forgot. The army... Jesus, I'm jittery. The doctrines. Well, we go through the doctrines, but you can already see what kind of situation we're gonna end up in. So the breakthrough is something that none of our units have. Actually, kind of interesting way, the regular artillery gives more breakthrough than the howitzer, while it gives way less soft attack. So this is something that's going to be a major change. I don't know what the tanks are going to be like. I expect that tanks are going to help with this. Also, you can get armored car who gives breakthrough, but armored car are super expensive when it comes to their manufacturing. And surprise, surprise, we have a huge malus to manufacturing capacity or the production efficiency cap, as I mentioned before. So this is a huge issue. Now, I'm going to show you something. If we wanted, for example, this would be a good infantry unit for me. I'd probably make it like this. I'd like to have this as a, say, 1915 infantry template. So each of the units will have a decent soft attack, a bit more attack, a bit more breakthrough, but I'd use this as a template for defense. I'd like to distribute armored car recons and support artillery, and maybe even the support howitzers. So this would be an awesome 1915 infantry division. I would be happy. But I'd like to point out that this would require 25 armored cars, 156 pieces of artillery, 9 units of howitzer, 1450 infantry equipment, and 40 support equipment per unit. At this point, we can distribute the infantry equipment, but I think our units actually don't have full equipment, so this might change. We also have some support equipment, but we have no howitzers. We would need to create 432. We would need to distribute, Jesus Christ, 3032 extra infantry, extra towed artillery pieces that we do not have. Meaning we have 1,000 in storage, and we would need 3032 more just for the units that we have. And we would need 1,200 armored cars. Now, allow me to just jump here. Right now, we have 23 military factories, and we're producing about not even 2 artillery pieces per week per one factory at full efficiency. Okay, so it's not 10, they got 20. They got 20 production efficiency instead of the 50 that we would have. So, yeah, we're not even at a half of what we normally would have. So if I added all of our factories to it, let's say we would add 15, okay? It would mean that we are producing 3.82 per day. That takes away most of our military capacity. Now, what was it like? We needed 3,000 extra artillery pieces just for the current army? Considering we're producing 3.82 per day, it would mean that it takes around, and again the math is not exactly correct, but around 2.5 years of this production to supply our units with the artillery pieces that we would need. So you might start getting a bit of an idea of what kind of struggle we are here against with the insane amount of military factories that we would need. Not to mention our units are not even using the upgraded infantry equipment. Cool. So we're using old infantry rifles at this point. Awesome. That's great. And we have no air capacity and stuff like that. So this is really going to be a struggle. I might be sounding a bit hysterical here, and I very much understand it, but right off the bat you guys need to understand why some of the choices that I'm gonna be doing are what they are. Because, Jesus Christ, this is going to be a nightmare. Anyway, okay, so let's look a bit more at the army, okay? So we got 52 divisions. All of them, as I mentioned, are of the regular infantry template, which is kind of fine. I think we have also, yep, we got a number of Schutztruppe divisions which are located in the colonies. Yep. So wait, let me check it out. We don't have many of them. We have one here. Okay, there's one over here, and I don't know how many we have in Tsingtao. Tsingtao was actually able to hold very, very long in the real war. Oh, actually, you have a different template. Yeah, I remember. You are obsolete, aren't you? Yeah. We got some obsolete templates. So Tsingtao Garrison is a separate unit. We are going to reform them. I'd really like to bolster our colonies and give them a bit more of a fighting chance. Though I have absolutely no idea what they're going to be after. Usually, the colonial forces of United Kingdom are somewhere completely different than whatever we're going to be able to field. So it might just be a moot point. But we're going to try, we're going to try. So, how are we going to deal with this? There are two ways that we could go with the army. We could start reforming it immediately and just hope that things are going to work themselves. Or we can do it in later increments, just save up the equipment and change it. But I think I'm going to do something completely different. I'm going to rename the infantry division here to 1910 Infantry Division. And we are going to start introducing updates. And as we're going to gain equipment, we are going to drag our older units, the oldest usually, to the newer models. And thus our army is always going to be in a state of a flux when we are modernizing and re-equipping. This is not unlike what happened in the actual World War I. Units were completely remodeled between the start and the end, and many units were stuck somewhere in between. Some received new equipment earlier, some received it later. So we're going to try to do that. We are not going to use the cavalry. I am sorry, but they're just too weak, and there's going to be too much of a fighting with the Russians and on the Western Front for them to be useful. Now, historically, they were very useful. They were able to capture quite a lot of territory, but we just have to stick with our units. Now, apart from the division that I actually showed you before, I'd actually like to have a heavy division, which is going to look something like this. So it's going to have, instead of the regular artillery, it's going to have heavy howitzers, giving it an extra soft attack. I'd like to have at least 4 of those by the start of the war, so that we can effectively start an offensive against the Russians. Most of our units are going to hold in place or attack when the opportunity comes, but the heavy breaches are going to come from the offensive. We can, go with the Stoßtruppen nomenclature we had while we were playing Austria-Hungary. Or we could, take some kind of idea from the historical German armed forces from this period. I'm not entirely sure what I'm going to call them yet, but we're going to see. So that's as far as the army. We are going to split them between three large chunks. There's going to be the Western forces that are going to be stationed at the border with France. There's going to be Eastern forces, which are going to be located in this area. And then, supporting the Austrian border. Actually, Lemberg, that's a city that was... Okay, there's no... That's kind of interesting. Lemberg was under siege for a number of months and actually held out while completely surrounded by the Russians. So I was thinking that it might have some land forts in it, but it doesn't. Never mind. We're gonna support our Austrian brethren here by an extra army or 2. And then we're going to have the Stoßtruppen divisions, or the offensive units, that are going to be located somewhere here, and are going to launch an attack from the north. I'm going to try to cut a large amount of the enemy army in and around Warsaw so that we can eliminate it, after which we're going to try to breach towards the marshes of these, I wanted to say central Russia, but just look at it, the not uttermost western Russia, but very close to it. And we're going to see how that's going to go. For colonial troops, we're going to have an entire separate theater of war. I think though they're not gonna do much. The Tsingtao garrison is just gonna defend itself. You guys are going to maybe run some offensive actions. We'll have to see how it's gonna go. Okay, so now to the research. Research is another thing that's actually kind of interesting in this mod. Same as in the original Great War, everything takes forever. So we'll have to be able to be patient here. Easy, we're gonna start focusing heavily on industry first. So urban machine tools, construction is gonna be the first things we want. I'm thinking whether or not we want excavation, but I think this could bite us in the rear later on if we don't. You guys are gonna be finished, okay, in 185 days, after which we can go with... I think we're gonna go with concentrated industry. While the efficiency, retention and base would be great, the difference of output is just too much, I think, to ignore at this point. But I'll have to decide. Do we have research done? Yeah, we do. Tanks are going to be super important for us, so we're gonna try to get to them. This is one of the things that I actually really like about this mod. It's way more focused on armor than the original one was, so hopefully we'll be able to see some tank action and see some upgrades to our tanks, because they keep getting upgrades as they go. You know, you have new technology and stuff like that, so hopefully this is gonna be better than in the original one, where you actually had the 1916 tank and then it was pretty much nothing to do. So we'll see about that. Support companies, of course, are going to be super important for us. We'll need the field hospitals. That's going to be a must for all of our units. Logistics companies, the same. Infantry equipment, there's not much to say. I don't think that we're going to be using motorized anytime soon, because we just not have the amount of stuff that it requires. But later on, it might be useful to get them as fast-moving units, because they could potentially give us some benefits. Mountaineers, of course, are going to be very useful. Marines, I'm not sure if we're going to have any issues with naval invasions. We're located centrally around our enemies, and the idea that we might want to land in the United Kingdom or something like that is completely preposterous, so I don't think that's something that we need to bother ourselves with. Naval. Well, naval is gonna come heavily. I'm gonna speak about that when the navy part comes. So, yeah, I guess we're gonna do excavation first. As far as the armies go, I'm gonna separate them off cam, because that's gonna be a bit of a mess. I'll need to reassign them and check who is where, and create some kind of structure and commanders, so I don't want to bother you with that for now. I'm just gonna do a slight overview about that in the second episode. Now, as far as free civilian factories goes, we have 35 of those, not a whole lot. What we're gonna do is we're gonna heavily focus on the areas with higher infrastructure, so that we can build our first civilian factories faster. Once these are going to be done in 1911, we're going to start adding some military factories, but first we really need to heavily boost our civilian capacity, because that is going to be really important for us. So let's just set it like this, and once we finish this, that's 2, 4, 6, 8, 9. Still not enough. Okay, by then we would have 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 11. Okay, so that is roughly... It's not gonna work like that, because we are gonna get some mouses, but this is looking kind of good. Let's start with this, see how it's gonna go. Now back to the military Military equipment. So what we need to do here is we need to start getting some early fighters, because we are definitely going to have to fight in the sky. Just so you know, I actually bought the by blood alone for this playthrough after we ended the Last Days of Europe playthrough, but there is no difference. They haven't updated the mod to include it, so there's no fancy aircraft designer here, unfortunately. But yeah, we're gonna start building the early fighters as soon as we can. I don't think we need transport planes. We could get a bunch of recons. They could help us. I'm gonna add an additional factory to the early fighters. I'd like to have more of those, so that we can actually do something useful here. We need to make sure that we'll have enough airplanes on the Russian and French front. I don't know how many they're gonna send against us, so 2 factories will have to suffice for now. As far as army equipment goes, we do want to start working on the cars, because I would like to have some units equipped with the recon cars instead of the recon units. We'll definitely need to start working on civilian trains, so let's add factories to those, because supply is going to be a huge issue for us as we're gonna expand our military operations. Okay, what else do we not have here? We have infantry, civilian train, support equipment. Okay, we'll need motorized. Whether or not we're gonna get motorized divisions doesn't really matter that much, because these are also used for supply. I think that I checked that the support battalion of the field hospital requires it. Oh, it doesn't tell me here. But I'm pretty sure field hospitals and logistics companies require motorized equipment, so we'll have to produce those. We'll have to start producing the howitzers as well, because we're going to use those as well. Oh great, 1 factory gives us around 3 of them per month. Amazing. That's just amazing. And anything else? I think we're using all of these. We're getting these airplanes we've set. Okay, cool. So now we're left with additional, 11 factories. Okay, so this is gonna be a major choice here. Okay, 4 factories will be assigned, or like, we're gonna add 3 additional factories to the infantry equipment, because we will need way more of that. Still, we're only getting 9 infantry rifles per day. Great. We'll need to have more on support equipment, because that is something that is gonna bother us, and we'll need more on towed artillery. And I'm left with 2 factories, huh? I'm tempted to add an additional one on civilian trains, so let's do that. And I guess we're gonna add 1 more on fighters. The early fighters are not great, but they are going to work, and we really can't have our units being bombed. How much are you getting compared to the Fokker, for example? Air attack 2-4, 1-1, agility, naval attack is 1, air defense is 4. No, I think that's a wrong choice. We'll keep 2 there. And then 1 extra factor is gonna go. It's gonna have to go to the infantry equipment, because we need that one as a base. So 11.44 per day, meaning in a month we get about 320, let's call it. And to recruit a new division we need 1490. Cool. So we need what? 5 months worth of production for 1 infantry unit? That's just amazing. That's just amazing. I mean, that is optimal. Weltpolitik will give us political power 120. which is good. You give naval experience. Let's go with Weltpolitik first, and then we're gonna go with our place under the sun, because we want the Agadir crisis to be available to us when we get to it. Or we might go, well, we're definitely gonna start with the Weltpolitik. We must enforce our Kaiser's divine right to rule. He will lead us to glory. So we get political power 120, change in popularity of authoritarianism by 10%. That is fine. And what else is there? Well, one thing that I haven't shown you is we can have 3 political advisors, and I already know which ones I want to get. There is... Okay, you're not the guy. Well, Johannes Kampf is gonna be useful. Lowered consumer goods factories by 5%. We're gonna get him eventually. But I'm looking forward to you. Clemens von Delbrück. Production efficiency cap increased by 5%, which is something that we need yesterday. So he's gonna be our first choice. That's gonna boost our... Like, right off the bat, we are getting 25% increase to our production. So that is something absolutely necessary for us. And... yeah, I think we might go with the guy that gave us plus 10% stability. That's actually pretty good. And the consumer goods factories are lowered by 5%. Wasn't there someone who increased the construction of new factories too? I thought. I don't see anyone like that though. Oh, here! August Thyssen. He gives civilian factory construction speed plus 10%. So it's gonna be a choice between Clemens von Delbrück and August Thyssen. I think I might start with August Thyssen and then Clemens. Because the 10%, that's a snowball effect. Railway, civilian, and infrastructure, that is really good. And Clemens is gonna come next. After which we are going to get Johannes Kampf. And I guess the stability guy will have to... be left out. Eventually we might switch the captain of the industry for him, but we'll see. So that's gonna be a focus. We have limited conscription, which I'm fine with. I don't think we're gonna have major manpower issues in the beginning, but we need to switch this from early mobilization to partial mobilization as soon as possible, because that is going to give us more fuel, and the consumer goods factories are gonna be lowered by 5%, which is gonna give us more civilian reduction. And Chief of Fire Force and stuff like that, that's gonna come later. There's nothing really that we can do with that now. So okay, I think this episode is long enough. It's running well over 50 minutes now. One last thing that we need to talk about before we go is the Navy. I'm ignoring the Air Force because that is just nothing at this point. We're just gonna have to deal with them as we'll build our... Oh hey, they changed this. Quick deploy. Okay, we have no airplanes in reserve. Cool. So there's no effective... Oh yeah, fighters. We're missing 93 and 5 airships. Amazing. Yep, so we need 93 more airplanes here and 5 more for the Zeppelins. Cool. So that covers Air Force. As far as Navy goes though, we have a huge Navy, which is consisting of 159 ships, but most of these ships are useless in an actual combat situation. When you look at them, they have maybe one gun, maybe one secondary, and they are completely empty. So we're gonna have to start modernizing our navy. Once we finish all of these constructions, because they are all, I think they are already all undergoing. Yeah, they're all undergoing. There's none that would be not underway already, so it would be a waste to cancel them. Once we finish this, I'm hoping that we're gonna amass enough navy experience to actually start upgrading our navy. We're gonna have to reform them pretty heavily. I'm gonna start from the bottom, so we're gonna start with destroyers, then light cruisers, then heavy cruisers, and then battleships. Or maybe destroyers, battleships, light cruisers, heavy cruisers, something like that. We'll see how much time it's gonna take for us to arrange the refits, because boy, it's gonna be a mess. I mean, look at that. This is, you know, 5,928 is the production cost. If we just add... Oh, great, we even have upgraded batteries. Awesome. So just this would mean a refit cost of an entirely new battleship. But, you know, we more than double its stats. Anything else that you want to upgrade? Oh, okay, we're not going to upgrade the engines and the battleship armor for now. But yeah, the refits are going to be very extensive. And that's why we will need the Navy Ducats. We got 15, but we're going to get 10 extra, as I mentioned before. So 25 is a decent number, which is why I don't think we need to construct any anytime soon. Anyway, as usual, this has been a huge, long episode, but I hope you got all the introduction that you needed. In case there are any questions, feel free to shout. I'm always here to answer any questions. And in the next one, we are actually going to start playing, which is something why we are all here. But yeah, as I mentioned, all we need to do is look at it. We need to analyze it, and with the mouses that we got, we need to actually be very meticulous and very careful at what we do, because every dead man is going to be an issue, but his lost gun is going to be a much bigger issue. So, till then, you guys, take care.